Hello again, and welcome to the Fantasy Sultans. It is week 14 of the NFL. He is the Hall of Famer Mike Sheck. I am Tripp Rogers, and we are here to help you get to the playoffs. You're riding that train. You're rolling into the playoffs. Although Mikey's train derailed.
Yeah.
Well, you ran it. Listen, you were playing the number one team in the league.
Yeah.
They were playing number one team in the league. No doubt about it. And hey, I was playing Johnny I. Got another Monday night miracle.
Yes.
Because Tyrone Tracy got hurt. Yeah, that's well, of course, on our Sundays with the Sultans program, which you can catch on foxsportsradionewjersey.com. We'll do our picks, and I have it on good authority. The Giants are a 10-point underdog against the bye this week. and the other thing I'm going to say real quick is Hard Knocks started this week.
Yeah.
And it's the NFC East. So I didn't expect to see much of the Giants. No. I saw more of the Giants than I thought I would. And, of course, the last thing they lead off with, or they end the show with, Jackson Dart getting banged out of bounds Monday night. That was when they started. They didn't show the end of the Giant game. So I can see that this is going to be, because next week the Eagles play on Monday, so that may be what carries over to the following week. But it was pretty good. I got to admit, it was really good. But let us move onward and upward. Week 13, Mike, another week that saw some head-scratching performances, that also saw some great performances. I think the biggest head-scratcher of them all is Lamar Jackson. Boy, did he look bad on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, he struggled against Cincinnati. That was a shocker. Week 13 overall was a shocker. It was crazy. How crazy was it?
How crazy was it?
So crazy. A player put up the highest, we normally see players put up the highest score of the week. How about a team as a whole putting up points of the week? The Seattle Seahawks, especially the defense, man, they led the charge well. And the best quarterbacks of the week were Bryce Young and Marcus Mariota. Young threw for over 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Marcus Mariota threw for 294 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Washington Commanders. Behind them, Trevor Lawrence, Tyrod Taylor, and Jacoby Brissett. And yeah, I haven't even mentioned Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, or Jalen Hurts yet. Well, that's because they didn't do as well as those other players did. And that's why we're calling it so crazy, because really crazy performances. Teams that you expected to win maybe this week didn't. It was the underdogs who came out and were victorious in that one. How about something so crazy that Kyle Pitts caught 7 passes? What is going on here? This is getting crazy stuff. Other studs of the week.
That's crazy.
Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. He continues to have 30 opportunities, rumbling off over 140 yards last week and a touchdown. Kamani Vidal for the Los Angeles Chargers rushed for 126 on 25 carries, including a 59-yard touchdown. And then Adonai Mitchell, he was brought back to life by Tyrod Taylor in New York. Yeah, he finishes the top scorer, 102 yards and a touchdown. Brock Bowers also had a good outing too, 2 touchdowns. We're going to move on to the duds here. And yeah, how about, we talked about Bryce Young, his success against the Rams. His opponent, Matt Stafford, didn't do too well. 2 interceptions, a lost fumble, and he had an off game. Justin Jefferson and Jackson Smith and Jigba combined for 4 receptions and 27 yards. That's crazy. And then, Tripp, I think it brings up a valid point here. Should owners really start panicking on Justin Jefferson? Because he hasn't had the greatest performances as of late.
Well, again, I think part of it is the quarterback situation. And I think J.J. McCarthy is pressing. Max Brosmer, not the answer. No, not going to be. I don't know if you panic because, again, Justin Jefferson is such a skilled performer. Also, let's throw in they played against some tough defenses. Let's see if he can right himself this weekend if McCarthy's back starting. But as you said last week, and I think people are starting to question, is J.J. McCarthy the real deal at quarterback for Minnesota? And again, that's part of the equation that goes over to Justin Jefferson. But the other side of it is they could have had Sam Darnold, let him go. Could have had Daniel Jones, didn't promise him a chance to start. And I think that was that. Do you think they're kicking themselves because they had not one but two chances to have a quality backup quarterback if they were going to go the J.J. McCarthy route, or if they wanted to keep Sam Darnold or keep Daniel Jones, let them try to start? Or, you get what you have in Minnesota, and Justin Jefferson's paying the price.
Well, I mean, you mentioned that point about, JJ McCarthy. Let's see about 5 years from now if, this whole conversation, because it takes sometimes years for quarterbacks to develop. Just look at Bryce Young in Carolina, and he still has some inconsistencies. So again, in the short term, maybe it was the wrong decision, but long term, it could be the right move for the Vikings.
And of course, you talked about the studs and the duds for the week. How about the New York Jets beating the Atlanta Falcons on a last-second field goal or walk-off field goal by Nick Folk, who played with Aaron Glenn on the Dallas Cowboys? That is such a funny thing that Nick Folk was on the Cowboys in 2007 when Aaron Glenn was on, and they're on the same team. Unreal. Unreal. Of course, Glenn is the coach. I mean, that was one of the funny things. And then let's talk, if you want to talk about fantasy performances, and I kid you not, Mike, had a conversation at work on Sunday, and it came up, Younghoe Kim is kicking for the Giants. And they go, he's terrible. I said, I pretty good for us so far. Boy, did I jinx it. I jinx it? That is a meme. That's a meme. And it was so funny because we'd actually talked about it, and they were like, it's Atlanta fans saying, oh, this guy's terrible. Well, Monday night he showed the world he's terrible.
His whiff on that kick sometimes looks like one of my golf shots.
Oh, my God. Oh, you had to bring that up, huh? You had to bring that up.
Well, no, I'm talking about my golf game.
I know. Well, my golf game is just as bad. So come on, I mean, the Sultans, we are not going to be picked for fantasy golf. I guarantee you we're not going to be, unless you want a high handicap on your team.
Yeah.
Oh, we're having too much fun. All right, week 14. Now, before we get into the import-exports, just a word. If you're in one of the ESPN leagues, and I think this is standard because ESPN runs their free league standard. And they are doing 2-week playoffs, and they start this week. So if you're in one of those leagues, you've got playoffs if you're one of the top 4 teams. And that's what has happened to me. But 2-week playoff games, again, there are pros and cons about them. One of the pros is it's 2 weeks. So if you have a bad game or a bad week, you still have an opportunity to win. But on the flip side, you could go into the second week down a big chunk of points and have to hope for a Sunday and Monday night miracle to come back and win. I mean, Mike, we've seen 2-week playoff games in our past, and I've participated in them too. Yeah. How do you feel, pro or con?
I'm a con against it. I'm like you with the advantage. I mean, you talk about, being a weekly game, and it is, and you could have a stellar week and then, beat your opponent, and then the following week your team puts up a dud, and then, you lose the game. And I think that's what happened in one of the leagues, because Sultans League one year decided to, I want to say it was around COVID, that we had the 2-week playoff format. And I actually was in the format. I think I was in it was the next to the last game going into the championship, and I think I was projected to win, and I did win that game. But then you said to me, "Wait a minute, we're playing a 2 week format," and I'm like, "Really? We're playing 2 weeks?" And then what happens? The following week, my team doesn't do well, and I lose. So I just think that fantasy is a game. Yeah, it's a weekly game, and I'm not a fan of the 2 week format. I'm just not.
All right. Well, there's again, it's a pro and a con thing, but here's where the con works. You're starting this week, week 14. There are still buys going on. So again, in leagues with 2 weeks games, you don't have some of your best players this week. You'll get them back for next week. So if you can kind of plug the leaks and then get your big guys back next week, it could be a good thing. The other thing I want to mention, even with 2 week playoffs, is still watch the waiver wire, because a lot of teams may have dumped players and there could be some gems on the waiver wire. And in one of those leagues I'm talking about with 2 week playoffs, somebody grabbed Jalen Daniels. And I didn't realize he was available. Had I done that, I would have grabbed him in a heartbeat. Jalen Daniels may come back this week for Washington, and that's going to be one of the fantasy stories that we will see going forward. So I mentioned that. And again, if you also are in a league that the playoffs start in week 13, and some leagues do start, go 13, 14, and 15, again, keep in mind, you've got some buys this week. I mean, you just have the Thursday night game. And of course, that's a good one, because it's the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions, and both teams are playing for their playoff life. So I think the loser in that game is going to be in trouble in terms of the playoffs. But that's an aside. Hopefully it'll be a good game fantasy, because again, you've got a lot of top players that will be involved in that Thursday night game. I'm talking about you, Jahmyr Gibbs, CD Lamb. Let's see some performances, boys. I mean, come on. David Montgomery. Need some performances, boys. I need some help here. And, of course, also in terms of fantasy, you have the injury to Amon St. Brown, and I don't think he is going to play this Thursday. The short week, I think, hurt him. But they say he should be all right for next week. The fact that, again, it's a short week, that's why. I think he was ruled out on Monday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to play this week.
Yeah.
So definitely. All right, let's get to our import exports for the week.
Yes, sir. It's you.
It is me. Yes, it is.
It's you. You lead off.
It is.
Because you're the Hall of Famer and I'm not.
I am going to start with running back Chris Rodriguez in Washington. He's a player you and I had as a late round sleeper in our drafts earlier back in August, September. Well, you imported him a few times this season. I'm going to import him a little late for the performance, but could be the right time now that we're heading down the stretch into the playoffs. He finished with 11 carries for 41 yards against Denver, has a touchdown in 3 of the past 4 games. Some favorable matchups coming up, too. He faces Minnesota this week, then the New York Giants in week 15, which should be a boost to Washington's offense. I would add him. You mentioned the Detroit Lions are going to play tomorrow night in that Thursday night game. Wide receiver with upside, Isaac Tesla. Thanksgiving, the Lions suffered a blow to the offense. You mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown going down with an ankle injury. He's not going to miss an extended period of time, but someone's going to have to step up in that offense, even if it is just for 1 week. We've seen flashes of brilliance from Tesla this season. He's averaging 16.7 yards per catch and has found the end zone when he's given a chance to play. And good news, he's available in about 90% of leagues. So if you're going to pick up Tesla, obviously you only have till the Thursday night game, as we're on a short week, short turnaround. So again, keep in mind of that situation. Keep an eye on Mike Evans in Tampa Bay. He's been out since week 7 with a collarbone injury. He's on the verge of returning, and he's worth adding if somebody dropped him in your league. Savvy owners probably kept him on IR. They're going to reactivate him when he becomes active, but if he was sent to waivers, you have an opportunity to claim him. I do it sooner than later. The Bucks have a crowded receiving core, Amika Ibuga and Chris Godwin, but that doesn't mean that Evans can't lead the team once again in targets. He's got some favorable matchups down the stretch as well. All right, you need a kicker. Well, think of kickers kicking indoors because we get to December and there's a variety of elements going on. You've got snow, sleet, rain, wind. Well, not in the dome stadiums because it is dry there, and that could be the difference in your matchup. You get those few extra points with the kicking game. A missed kick could be the difference in you winning or losing a game. And in a case of a missed kick, it is you losing a game. So he gets Washington this week, and that defense has been below average. I expect the points to become a premium for the Vikings and Riker. All right, let's go to the exports. And Kansas City's Isaiah Pacheco. Now, he's really been unable to recapture that form that he had in 2022 and 2023. He returned from a knee injury in Week 13, but he only served as a backup role to Kareem Hunt. Hunt played 42 offensive snaps to Pacheco's 20. Just 3 carries for 16 yards against Dallas. And you know what? He has not done it this season. Only 1 touchdown. I think it's time to send him over to waivers. If you do have the roster spot, you can keep him. But again, I think you should send him to waivers. Pair of Tampa running backs that are droppable: Rashad White and Sean Tucker. Now, it's funny we mentioned these 2 guys because on our podcast a few weeks ago, we talked about these 2 guys. Do you buy? Do you hold? Do you sell them? Well, now it's time to sell them because Bucky Irving back in the lineup, and he had a good day. Irving played 32 snaps in his first game back, 19 touches for him as well. White only had 5. Tucker recorded 2. White's currently rostered in 66% of leagues with Tucker 45. I think you could drop him. Finally, you could drop Parker Washington in Jacksonville. He's dealing with a hip injury, ruled out last week after recording a 1 reception for 26 yards. Since playing in a full-time role in Week 7, he's recorded 22 receptions, 266 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But Jacoby Myers and Brian Thomas Jr. are going to get bumps in targets as long as Washington is sidelined. So again, he might, you might want to drop him. If he gets better, pick him back up. But again, I think there's no regret here in the drop.
And one thing you want to mention, because you bring up a good point, Mike, if you do drop a player and you are in the playoffs, if you're in a league that has a savvy league manager, there will be a way to block other teams from getting this, except for the teams that are in the playoffs. Yeah. And that's one of my biggest beefs. The league that we're in, the Rat League, they will allow pickups anytime. And when we were going for a championship a couple of years ago, I couldn't get somebody because somebody else had taken them. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm playing for a championship. What's the big deal here? So, yeah, that's annoying. So yeah. if you're in a league, hopefully, again, and ESPN does have that now on their draft, you can lock out teams that are not in the playoffs, so they can't make these waiver roster or these waiver moves. All right, you want some waiver moves to make here, Week 14? All right, Mike has talked about it, imported him a couple of weeks ago. I'm jumping on the bandwagon. And let it not be said, I don't jump on the Hall of Famers bandwagon. I do all the time. Devin Singletary of the New York Giants. Now, Tyrone Tracy cut it off with a hip injury in the 4th quarter. Singletary already outplaying Tracy before the injury. He had more carries in the first half, 68 yards, 12 rushes, touchdown, caught all 3 of his passes for 34 yards. Giants have a Week 14 bye. Tracy has time to recover. And they said, and Tuesday he said he avoided serious injury, but Singletary will, if he does not play in Week, I'm talking about Tracy, if he does not play in Week 15, Singletary vault into RB2 range. Giants running backs are 15th in PPR points per game, and only Eric Gray sits behind Singletary on the depth chart. Giants post-bye schedule is the 11th best for running back scoring. The worst matchup among 3 games sits in neutral territory for fantasy points allowed. So there's a guy to pick up. And again, he would be for the down the stretch. And if you're looking to the playoffs, this could be a good pickup or obviously a handcuff with Tyrone Tracy. Brenton Strange, the tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You know, Mike, you mentioned how Trevor Lawrence is having a nice year, and he's on a couple of my teams, and I like what he's doing. Strange, 13-plus PPR points in both his games since returning from a quad injury. He caught his first TD of the season in Week 13, and, listen, it has gotten better and better. Strange had a strong showing against the Titans defense that allowed the 8th fewest fantasy points to tight ends. Guess what? Here's his schedule, 7th easiest for tight ends. Indianapolis Week 14, Jets Week 15, Denver Week 16, Indianapolis Week 17. Strange is somebody you could pick up. He's got tight end 1 or 2 potential the rest of the season. Adonai Mitchell, welcome back to the NFL. Yeah, Mike, again, I'm riding his coattails. I ride the Hall of Famer's coattails all the time. Since joining the Jets, Mitchell has led New York's wide receiving core. Again, 98% route rate, 12 targets, 8 for 102 and a TD in the Jets' 27-24 win. Now, of course, Mitchell broke out in Week 13. He had some modest numbers with the Jets, but I mean, I think this is going to be going forward. He's the guy who Tyrod Taylor is really going to count on, and the Jets are going to count on. Week 14, tough matchup with Miami, but the Jets Week 15 through 17 have Steelers, Bengals, Buccaneers. Yeah, looks good for the wide receivers, so you may want to grab Mitchell. I'm going to give you a streaming defense too, because at this time of the year, 1 or 2 points could make the difference between moving on and moving out. So the moving on side of things, the Kansas City defense. And you say, why? Well, Week 14, they have Houston. Week 15, the Chargers. 16, Tennessee. 17, Denver. Those are good defenses. Those are good matchups, the Kansas City defense. So if you're looking to pick up a defense, they would be the guy. On the export list, Jaden Daniels looks like he's going to return for Week 14 for the Washington Commanders, which means Marcus Mariota, well, he's got a road matchup with the Vikings this week, but Mariota, I think, is a drop candidate. You could do better if you need a streaming spot starter, but again, Marcus Mariota may not be the guy. That could have been a high watermark last week. David Njoku for the Cleveland Browns has found himself left in the shadows of Harold Fannin, 37% route rate in Week 13, 4 yards. He's now been held under 40 yards in 5 straight games. Njoku has found himself on the downside in Cleveland. And again, Harold Fannin is the reason you can export him. He is not going to help you. Michael, as we said, as we head to the sunset of this podcast on Week 14, thoughts?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, some leagues may start their playoffs this week. Others will be next week. But, before entering the playoffs, I really think you need to roster 2 quarterbacks. Now, this is the most reliable position in the league. And I really don't think that you can go into the playoffs with just one passer. Even if you have a top tier quarterback, we know injuries happen. And if you don't have that capable backup, you're not going to win your league. So quarterback is a must. I think you need to carry 2 quarterbacks. I think you also need to have insurance at running back. And that means focusing on players that are the clear number 2 back. I'm not talking about players that are in a committee. I am talking about a clear number 2 back that teams go to. And I really think that you need to find those players and get them to your roster ASAP. Because again, as we talk about the waiver wire, gems come and go. And you're not going to always find them each and every week. So you need to find these reliable players now before we get into the playoffs. And if you're going to ride yourself to a championship, you got to have these players.
And also keep in mind that we will have Saturday games starting Week 15. So we will, is it 15 or? No, it's 16. I'm sorry. Week 16, we will have Saturday games. So if you're in the playoffs, again, you're going to have to set your rosters for various games. I think it's if I'm not mistaken, is it a doubleheader or a triple header on the Week 16? I know it's a single game on Week 18 or is it Week 17? Because I know Week 17 they have a couple possibilities. One of them will not be the New York Football Giants. I know that you look at that schedule. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, I think that's what it is. But again, keep that in mind as we go forward. My mind is focused on one thing, and that's winning. And your mind is focused on one thing, winning. That's why you tune in to the Fantasy Sultans every week. We give you the little nuggets, the little nuggets. Yeah. How about nuggets?
We give you.
Yeah, from the noggin. We give you those nuggets that'll help you win your league. We're here for you. We're givers. We are givers. Even though it's not Christmas, we're giving. We're giving from September to December and even into January because he is the Hall of Famer Mike Scheck. I am Tripp Rogers, and we are the Fantasy Sultans.
And you are not.